right, people, welcome back. We are Scream Sister. We are just winging it here, people. We are like seriously, we're just flying by the seat of our pants because Valerie usually does the intro, but she doesn't want to do it today for
I told her
some
I'm sick of
reason.
it. I'm over it. I'm not sick of doing this, but I'm just like, you know how like sometimes you just get over the sound of your own voice. Like I'm just so
Well, that's
sick
not
of
good when
listening
you're
to
doing a
myself.
podcast.
I mean, hopefully other people are fine with me, but I'm over me.
We are Scream Sister. I'm Veronica, and the other one over there.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Valerie.
Valerie. Who's not
I'm
paying
not used to coming in second. Sorry.
Okay, so today is another movie watch, and if you've been following our podcast, we normally do focus on kind of Latinx horror movies from different Latin countries, but we always talk about how we're gonna sometimes kind of veer off into other avenues and other non-American movies, horror movies as well. But we hadn't actually done it yet. We finally got around to doing it. For this episode, we both watched Train to Busan, which, full disclosure, and I've mentioned this before, I have seen this movie before and loved it, and I've been recommending it to Valerie for forever.
So wait, did you watch it again? Did you rewatch it this week?
Again.
Okay.
Just to refresh my memory.
Yeah.
And to see if I was going to cry as much as the first time.
And did you?
No. Like the first time I watched it, there's this movie reaction channel on YouTube. It's called either Nikki and Steven React or Steven and Nikki React. I don't remember who goes, like what order the names are, but they watched this movie and the woman, Nikki, the wife, she was like hysterical sobbing. Like I was not at that level the first time I watched it, but it wasn't too far off. I mean, this time it was more just a quiet weeping. But still crying. But yeah, so we watched Train to Busan, which is a movie that came out in 2016. The tagline reads, really short, while a zombie virus breaks out in South Korea, passengers struggle to survive on the train from Seoul to Busan. It was directed by, and forgive me if I mispronounce these names, it's not my intention. I did the best I could to kind of find someone who said it in an interview with the director, and the director did not correct him. They pronounced it Yeon Sang-ho. So that's the director, written by, and most of the characters created by Joo-suk Park and Yeon Sang-ho again.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, I don't know if I can attempt these actors' names. They're all on IMDb. Go look them up. They were all stellar and wonderful. I do know that the main guy, Gong Yoo, also pretty familiar now to a lot of American audiences because he was in Squid Game, apparently. I have not watched it, but it was a real big phenomenon on Netflix there for a while.
Yeah.
So he's in that as well.
Well, and I saw, so the man who plays the father to be, you know, the guy who's about to be a father, he, I believe, is in the Marvel Eternals, right?
The Eternals, yes.
He
was in the Marvel Eternals. And kind of fun fact, he used to be the personal trainer for Gong Yoo.
I read that, yeah.
So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to massacre these people's names because they deserve better than that. They all did wonderful. They're all listed on IMDb. So
this is one of Veronica's favorite movies.
Yes. So I don't want to desecrate anyone's names by mispronouncing them. So this movie came out in 2016, which obviously was pre-COVID, you know, and then COVID happened and the world changed. And so it was interesting for me to watch this movie because it hits a lot differently, you know, post-COVID. So we can talk about that more later. But just Valerie, this was your first time watching. First impressions.
This is my first time, and I was very nervous going in because, as Veronica said on the last episode, she apparently cried buckets, and which takes a lot to get emotion out of this woman. And then also we had people kind of chiming in on social media, kind of reflecting the same thing, that they had the same reactions, very strong emotions. And I was just like, oh God, I don't know if I can emotionally handle this right now. Coming off of Tigers Are Not Afraid, coming off of The Devil Takes You Home, and now we're going into this film. I was like, God dang it, I'm going to be hollowed out.
Well, we're in the wrong genre if we want. I know I said I would watch happy movies, but we're in the wrong genre for that.
I thought it was and I have so many things I want to talk about, but I was so swept up in, I guess, you know, Veronica's really hardcore on, zombie is her genre. She loves zombie horror films. Zombie films are fun for me too. They're it's a little bit scarier for me. And I kind of was thinking about zombie films and what it is about them that is so scary to me. I think it's because zombies for me are like a zero-sum game. It's do or die. And there is a certain point in a lot of zombie films, and in this one in particular, where I just hit a point of like hopelessness where I was just like, well, just screw it. If this were me in this scenario, I think everybody has their zombie scenario. We all kind of try to brainstorm what we would do in a zombie apocalypse situation. And in the movie, like halfway through the movie, I was just like, well, screw it. I'd be dead. I'd be dead by now because I would just give up and just lay down and embrace the cold, hard reality of death. Even though I did have those feelings in this movie, I was so blown away by how beautiful and thoughtful the storytelling was, just thoughtfully done. And we'll get to why. I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Let me just start. So like I watched this by myself, as I do all of our horror movies, because my partner refuses to watch them with me. But I was sitting on the couch, and that opening scene, Ron, where it's like, I guess it's like a farmer who's driving his truck and he hits the deer.
Mm-hmm.
And then he like gets out of the car, surveys the damage, hops back in the car and leaves the deer in the road. And then the camera pans to the deer. And I was just like, if that deer gets up, I'm going to freak out. And then the deer did. And like my mouth was just agape. I mean, right off the bat, I thought that was so well done. And I like that.
That's the first time. Now, granted, I have not seen every zombie movie ever made. And certainly, in fact, Valerie and I were just talking about this before we actually started recording, I think, about we tend to get kind of insular in there's so much other movies out there besides what Hollywood cranks out.
Oh,
And
yes. Yeah.
there's a lot of, I'm sure, zombie movies out there that I haven't hit yet that I would like to try to get to. But for me, in the zombie movies that I have seen, I don't think I've ever seen, I think this was my first zombie animal.
I mean, kind of the same. I don't know that I've seen it either. And kind of an interesting choice, because I was thinking about like what was it about that was so unsettling? It wasn't just that it was an animal. It was a deliberate choice. I think choosing a deer, which I think universally we kind of associate as like the peak innocence of life, and then perverting it by making it like this zombie deer. I just thought that was really twisted right off the bat. And I was like,
And
oh, this is going to be good.
even though we don't see any more animals through the rest of the movie, obviously because the whole movie takes place pretty much on a train, it's an interesting concept to think about, because as screwed up as we would all be with just people were zombies, can you imagine if animals were also zombies?
I
They'd be
know.
like, they're everywhere. I mean, where would you go?
What would you do if like zoo animals break out as like a zombie tiger coming at you? Like that's kind of terrifying.
Or even just, walking outside your house like a zombie bird or a zombie squirrel. It's like, where
For real.
we'd
Like
really be
let's just
screwed.
pretend that Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds was like they're zombie birds. Like
There you go.
that introduces a whole different element. And I remember when this movie came out and hearing the buzz about it, I completely understand why. This film was great. I loved it. I would rewatch it again, totally, in a
Well, see,
heartbeat.
this movie flew under my radar. The only reason that I watched it the first time, because my youngest daughter, she's 18 now, so was she 18?
She
So this was like a
is?
couple of, yeah,
What? She's
isn't she?
18? Good grief. I'm so old.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
She's graduating.
Mother of
That's
the
the
Year
important thing.
award
She's
over here.
graduating high school.
But she's the one who had heard about it somewhere and wanted to watch it. So her and my husband and her older brother all sat down and watched it. I didn't know anything about it, so I didn't know it was a foreign film. So when the subtitles started, I was like,
Gotta focus, gotta dial
gotta
in.
focus, gotta pay attention, gotta actually read.
Did you know it was zombies?
I knew it was zombies, I think.
Okay.
But like, just didn't have any expectations. And yes, by the end, I was just a bawling mess.
What did you think? So like and this hits fresh because for spring break, we were down in Galveston. We took the kids there's some train museum down in Galveston. I forget what it's called. Probably the freaking Train Museum of Galveston. I don't know. But anyway, it's like old trains that you get to board and walk through, and they've kind of turned the train cars into the museum itself. And so you get to walk through these train cars and kind of just see, like my favorite train car happened to be a portion of the train that was the United States Postal Service. And so you got to see like a post office unit on a train, and it was really cool. But you got to see like the dining cars, the boarding kind of sleeping cars, which was so nice and very period. It smelled very musty, but very cool, made for some very cool photos. But immediately it triggered my feelings of claustrophobia, because I get pretty claustrophobic in tight spaces and certainly in crowds. Like whenever we've gone to Austin City Limits Music Fest downtown, like I can get pretty uneasy pretty quickly in crowds that size. So like the concept of zombies in an enclosed space like a train, that's brilliant and terrifying because they're
Yeah.
just like, there's nowhere to go. You
Nowhere
can't
to
escape
go.
that.
Yeah. So the movie starts off a little bit slow. We meet the main character, the father, and his daughter. He's obviously divorced. He's raising her on his own with his mother's help, but he clearly is like a workaholic,
Kind of an
um,
emotionally unavailable dad. Yeah.
emotionally unavailable. So it was like your first impression of him as a character. Like, where were you thinking it was going to go?
I don't know how you felt about him. I immediately had empathy for him because I was just thinking, this is obviously a father who doesn't strike me as a cold, unfeeling dad. He just strikes me as a dude who doesn't know how to do that on his own yet. And so how the movie kind of and it was unclear to me as to what his job is until it's spelled out later. I guess he's like a fund manager, is he a
Hedge
hedge fund
fund.
manager? Is
I
that what he
think so,
is?
which I'm not really clear what that
I'm
is.
not clear on I'm not clear on what they do so much, but whatever. Profits over people. Maybe that's what what the general idea of it is. He kind of agrees after his daughter's pleading that all she wants to do is to go visit her mom who lives in Busan. And so he kind of agrees to take her via the train. That's sort of how we get started. That's how we launch into the movie, which that was another thing. I kind of enjoyed the fact that they do not keep you waiting long in terms of
Right.
getting right to it. And you kind of get glimpses via the city scenes around them that there is some unrest. Something's happening. We don't know what yet, but there's just like at the beginning of the film, the
Yeah,
farmer
some
who runs over the
quarantine.
deer. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like a quarantining station happening and you're not clear why yet, but and actually I meant to ask you and I forgot. That farmer who drives through and is kind of griping out that guy who's manning the quarantine station.
Mhm.
He's griping him out about something to the effect of, what does he say? It's something like, you're going to
Like kill the
impact my
hogs or something.
animals.
Yeah,
Something
so
about with his
well,
hogs.
and,
There's
you know
something in the environment going
right.
on.
So clearly something similar has happened before, not obviously not to this extent, but maybe there was some other, like more of a normal, quote, unquote, "outbreak" that happened among animals, kind of like in England when they had that mad cow disease, maybe
Mm-hmm.
something more mundane, but obviously that was not the case this time. So, yeah, they get to the train, they're heading to Busan to where the daughter's mother leaves.
Suan,
Suwon? I think,
if
yeah,
I'm saying
something
it
like
right,
that.
Suan.
To Busan where her mother lives, and, that train employee had one job to do, like, you know, observe the passengers boarding the train, but a little misinfected,
Little misinfected. And the
gets
minute
on
she like
board.
runs on the train, I was like, no, no, no. It's like,
I was like, "Dude, you had one job."
well, here we go.
So, and that pretty much seals the fate. And then we start to meet a few select of the other passengers on board. We meet a pair of like elderly sisters, and then we meet like pregnant woman and her husband. Then there's two
Sport.
teenage, like a girl and a boy.
They're
He's a
part of
member of
like
a
a
baseball
sports
team.
team. There's like
Yeah.
a baseball team on board.
And she
High
likes
school
him.
age, yeah.
And then that businessman dude, that older
The
businessman dude who,
COO guy. Yeah,
yeah.
he identifies him as a COO, and I don't remember what his name is, but yeah, that dude. That dude who I was screaming
Dude.
at the whole last half of the movie. Yeah, so you see them on board this train,
Oh, and the
and then
homeless man
well, he's the only one who gets on board having already had some
witnessed
kind of
something.
sense of what's
Yeah.
going out there in the world. So he's already traumatized and you can tell that he has just been duking it out for his life. So he gets aboard of the train. But at the last possible second, yeah, like Veronica said, this woman gets on the train and you immediately understand that she's been attacked, she's been injured. What I enjoy again about this particular film and their approach to the transformation is very fast.
Mhm.
So her transformation from human to zombie happens very quickly, and then she immediately starts attacking train personnel, and then it just all snowballs from there. So
And just the weird, like, jerky body angles and the jerky body movements, it was just really creepy.
it was pretty well done, and I was sort of reading about how I guess like one of the and we'll get to a point where we'll talk about all the ins and outs of this film, but I guess like one of the things that he mentioned doing for the film was bringing on breakdancers as choreographers for these particular zombie scenes. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And you can kind of tell that's very obvious. There's some scenes where these bodies are moving in ways that it's just like broken limbs and everything. So it was pretty cool.
So what was your thought when, okay, stuff has started to go south on the train? The young girl is in the bathroom. Her father, do you know where your daughter is?
Right.
So he's looking for her. Things are starting to happen. They all run towards, I guess, like the front of the train, and he sees the father's carrying his daughter, and he sees that the other man and his pregnant wife are coming. They're running, and he shuts the door on them. What was your initial thought about that?
I mean, like,
I mean, it's hard to say because you're not in that situation.
I'm not in that situation. I guess like I can understand, and it happens in a much more intense way later on. I can understand the impulse to panic, and I can understand maybe not processing what you're looking at and just wanting to sort of like protect yourself, protect your daughter, close off the gates. I felt conflicted. Honestly, what conflicted me the most is like, that's a pregnant lady. Like
No.
that's where my brain went. I was like, that's a pregnant lady. Like help
Well,
her.
but then the thing about that character, the father of the young girl, this is kind of a pattern for him, though, that we quickly come to know is kind of the lookout for number one mentality,
Hmm.
right? Because even the daughter points that out later about how you only ever think of yourself. That's why mom left. Like when she offers her seat to the elderly lady to sit down, he's like, you didn't have to do that. You don't have to be so good. And her motivation is always to want to help
And to think of others,
and
yeah.
to think of others. And he initially starts off the movie where it's just take care of yourself and let other people, whatever happens to them. But
Which
you
I
know,
like in a zombie apocalypse situation, you can kind of I don't know, I never watched The Walking Dead, but I can kind of see how that might be a good survival strategy, like prioritize yourself, whatever, I guess, but not at the expense of others, I suppose. So yeah, like my initial thought it was just like, dude, she's pregnant. And throughout the course of the movie when this poor pregnant woman is having to like flee the zombies, I was watching it. I was just like, dude, you're not running fast enough. I know you can't because you're preggo, but like, you're not going to make it.
but
So,
it's in contrast to like people like the pregnant woman and her husband who do always seem to like be looking out for other people. Like even like the situation kind of gets reversed when they get to that one stop where everybody gets off and turns out the military, they've all been turned.
yeah, so getting into act 2 where we'll hit that up. I mean, one thing I do want to say is that, one thing that kind of immediately gets established in this film for me, first time seeing it, is that this is the take on the rage zombie, or like what we've come to identify as like the World War Z style zombie, where they're just moving with rage and speed and this terrible physicality to them. So like I
Mhm.
said, I really enjoyed the physicality of those zombie actors. I liked that the transition happens as fast as it does. And it kind of makes the choices of some of the victims on the train in the beginning pretty believable, because when the transition happens as fast as it does, you're so confused. You're not processing fast
What you're
enough what is
seeing, yeah.
happening. So yeah, it makes it very believable that you would just be delayed in your reactions and do something stupid like, not flee fast enough. Towards the end, obviously, it's like, okay, they've been bit, immediately start running because you
Yeah.
have like 60
Second.
seconds to get out. The father of the young girl gets notified by his employee. He's on the phone communicating with his employee, the analyst guy, throughout the movie, and he gets wind of the fact that whatever city, it's not Busan, it's a city before Busan, so it's
Mhm.
another stop
Some
where
other
they're
stop.
supposed to be stopping, where military is supposed to be there staged, and it's supposed to be a safe place to detrain, deboard. Only when they get there, the analyst guy informs them it's like, well, they're going to send you all into quarantine, and immediately the father's put off by that. He doesn't want to go into quarantine. And the little girl doesn't seem to want to flee and leave the others to go into quarantine. And I wrote in my notes, Ron, I was like, and help me out here, because I wrote in my notes, is like, but is quarantine so bad? Like, what happens in quarantine? Like the whole time before we realize what has happened to the
Mhm.
soldiers, to the military, I'm just like, but that's not so bad, right? Like you're just going to go somewhere and be on lockdown and get some rest. Like that doesn't sound so terrible. And so I
Right?
wrote in my notes, what's so bad about quarantine? And then when you see that all of the military has been turned into zombies and they're waiting for them at the bottom of the stairs, then I was like, okay, yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's not great. We start to see some of the people who have made it up to this point, all of the baseball team, with the exception of the girl cheerleader and the one baseball dude. Like, all of the
Mhm.
baseball team gets attacked and they get turned.
Yeah, this
So
movie weeds out the extras pretty fast. They don't stick
pretty
around very
fast.
long.
We do see the elderly sisters get separated. So
Mhm.
they get separated and put on different train cars, believing that the other one has been left to die. So yeah, they're both in a state of shock because they believe they've deserted the other one and the other one got left behind.
But
I
see, and
mean,
that
what
was an
else?
example where the pregnant lady helps that one sister because she's fallen. She, instead of like running and just saving herself and getting on the train, she stops to pick her up and help her board. So there's like different kinds of people on this train, people that are just out for themselves and not really concerned with the welfare of their fellow man. And then you've got those that, even in this catastrophic, dangerous setting, they're still looking out for their neighbor.
Yeah. We
Which is kind of
also
interesting because we saw this, right? The world saw this play out during COVID, and this was a worldwide thing. It wasn't just country specific. We all saw people who were just out for themselves and to take care of themselves and weren't concerned with protecting the health or safety of the people around them. So, yeah, that's why watching this movie now just played a lot differently
yeah,
because I'm like, yeah,
and
I know people
speaking
like you.
yeah, and so speaking to that, it's right around this middle chunk of the film where we start to see the depths of that COO guy's depravity, and then, like,
It's selfishness.
just a complete ass, just a complete
Mhm.
ass. So and like, he can't die soon enough, in my opinion. I'm just like, as the movie goes on, I'm getting increasingly more and more pissed off that it hasn't happened yet. I'm like,
Right?
when are you gonna die?
I was like,
so
this guy, this
so
man.
that particular scene in that station, Ron, where they get there expecting the military to save the day, and the military's all been turned, and so now they're all trying to flee and get back on these train cars, and there's like, I think it's here that we start to see like zombies falling from window, like falling on the train car, like
Mhm.
just falling out of everywhere. That this is where I entered my stage of like, well, it's hopeless, and just time to lay down and die. Like, in a zombie apocalypse situation, do you think that you would survive, or how far do you think you would make it in the battle to survive? Because I
If
want to
we're
believe I would
talking
make it, but I
if
don't
we're
think I would.
talking like George
Mhm.
Romero, Night of the Living Dead zombies, could just do a fast walk and get away from them, I think you could
Mhm.
probably last pretty long damn time. These
Yeah.
zombies or World War Z zombies, no, not even. You might, you're
I
a runner.
I don't know, man,
I always
because I think I want to believe that, but I think what would happen to me is, in the flight or fright scenario, like, it would just be like, I would just be paralyzed with fear, and I would get attacked. In some stupid way, I would just
well, because you know,
lay down
they
and give
don't
up.
stop coming, they don't get
They don't ever
tired.
stop coming.
They don't get tired.
They're multiplying in at rates you can't keep up with. It's
Yeah, so
just,
yeah.
I would give up. I would just give up and be like, leave me for dead.
But during that, when they're trying to get away, get back on and what about those stupid people that opened the train door and it's full of zombies? That car is full of zombies. I'm like, "You idiots." Remember that scene?
No, no. Which scene was that?
It was
Where
just
what?
random train extras that were running to get back on the train, and they open the door to a car,
Oh.
and it's zombies are in there. It's like, "Hello?" So they're all running to get back on the train, and here we see that father, that husband of the pregnant lady, who he's already on the outside. Him and the surviving baseball
Baseball
members are
guy.
with him, and the
Mhm.
young girl's father is still inside, and the pregnant lady's husband makes a point of opening the door and yelling for him to come, to run,
That's
run.
right, that's right. He's in the exact same scenario,
Yeah,
and he
but
chooses to
reversed.
open the door
Right.
and let the dude in.
And I think
Um,
that kind of starts the character arc of the little girl's father
mhm.
in changing, because even when they're running on the train, he gets on the train first, but he's reaching back for the
To
pregnant
to
lady's
to help
husband.
the dude
Mhm.
whose physical prowess, the father to be, his physical abilities are just,
I loved him.
they're the needed action part of this movie. He's also like, he brings the comedic touch to this movie for,
Mhm.
lighthearted moments of what would otherwise be a pretty bleak
And
film,
that's what I like. I mean, I know horror movies are horror movies, and it's gonna be violence, there's gonna be deaths, you're gonna lose characters that you love, but I also like when they can incorporate those more lighthearted, funny moments in ways
Yes.
that feel natural and organic to the scene. It's not like something that feels hokey, just screams out of place. It just kind of fits in with what's going on. So I appreciate giving us those moments of levity, however
Well,
few
yeah,
and far between they may be.
and I agree with you because in those moments, if you don't have something to break the tension,
Mhm.
like the world would just lay down and die so much quicker if we didn't have someone in our orbit who occasionally breaks the tension with something stupid, something lighthearted, like you said, not campy, not going for laughs, but just something to break up the tension a little bit. So, and he provides that, which is great because otherwise, this movie would be way too intense, way too depressing. So, yeah, what did you think? So, before we get somewhere in the second chunk of this movie, is where we learn kind of what the vulnerability of the zombies is, which is that they're vulnerable to the dark. And so, what did you
Well,
think
I
of
don't
that?
think it's so much dark, it's just if they don't have line of sight on you, if they
Okay.
can't see you, they don't have the
But
reasoning
when
skill.
they go through the tunnels, they
Yeah.
seem to zone out because I took it to mean like their range of sight isn't so
Well,
great.
yeah, they might
Yeah.
not have good vision,
Yeah.
afterwards, but it's also just have you ever seen those videos of dogs where, like, the
Well,
owner just kind of hides and the dog doesn't have the some dogs.
I likened it to parakeets, and you just
Yeah,
put a blanket over their cage and
and
they
they just
chill out.
think you disappeared. Yeah, so kinda like that.
So I was like, "What if we just put a blanket over them, guys? Like, what if we did just that?"
I mean,
But
yeah, maybe it's a little convenient that they don't have
no, but see, like,
good vision.
I thought it was so novel and cool, and what a good what a good tool, for lack of a better word, for fueling the rest of the story is to
Mhm.
make it so that the zombies have essentially their line of sight isn't so great. They can be easily thwarted by darkness or by cover of some kind. And so it kind of enables what happens next, which is the father of the young girl, the father to be, and the baseball kid, they all get stuck in a particular train car that they're not that is not helpful to them. Everyone else is in
Yeah.
another train car, and so
At this
they've
point,
got to
our group of survivors that we've been introduced to are separate,
are
so
separate, yeah.
they're
And
separated.
the old lady is also with them too, one of the old sisters. So the idea is that they now have to get past what, like 2 or 3 train cars full of zombies to get to the safe car where there are healthy people. So yeah, it's in this section of the movie that we discover how they're able to do it, which is they learn that when they pass through tunnels, that is their opportunity to get past them because the zombies don't have that range of vision that they can see
Which I
them.
guess makes sense because their eyes, they get clouded over, so I guess you could liken it to, like, someone who has just really bad, like, macular degeneration. They've got that cloudy film over their eyes, so I guess it makes sense that in low light, they just wouldn't be able to see very well at all.
As the movie goes on, and you forget, like, I forgot, this was what I thought at first, and then I was like, "Oh, that's right, this is all happening in one day." Because I was just as the movie goes on, I'm just like, "When does freaking night happen?" Like, if night would happen, they would be so benefited by that, but it's just like, it's all one day that this is taking place, so the 3rd act of the film where we really do start to lose key characters that up until this point have made it and survived throughout the entire film. One of them being the father to be, our favorite character, the Eternals guy. He was your favorite. He was my favorite too, which is why I knew he's gonna die. What did you think of that death, that moment?
That was hard. I'm trying to remember, like, what my initial reaction was, because obviously, not everyone's gonna make it to the finish line, not everyone's gonna make it to the end of the movie, but
I mean, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. The moment we met him and he was as lovable and wonderful as he was, I was like, "Oh yeah, he's going down. It's happening."
that was my first weeping moment. Not as hard crying as what comes later, but when he was turning, he was still with everything that was still human in him, was fighting to hold back the horde as long as possible to give his wife and the other survivors just a couple more seconds to make it to safety. So it
The
was just
moment
heartbreaking to watch.
yeah, it was the moment where because, throughout the first half of the movie, they're pregnant with what we learn to be a baby girl, and the baby girl has no name because as his wife kind of alludes to, he hasn't named her yet, yada yada, and he's like, "Oh, whatever. I made that. I'm really proud of that." So then at the end, like, or at his end, where he's holding off the zombies and his wife's standing. Like, it was just a beautiful moment where she's turning to leave because he's told her, go, go. And then as she's leaving, he shouts out to her the name of their baby girl. He's like, name her. This is her name. And
Mhm.
it was so beautiful. And I will tell you right now, I made it through this film run. I didn't cry.
Ever?
Ever cry. I never cried because I
You're a
was just like,
monster.
no, it was because I was emotionally prepared for the worst. And so I was just like, it's going to be devastating. And if I just know that going in, everybody dies, life is meaningless. I went in my most nihilistic self, but there were plenty of moments, this being one of them, where it's just like, yeah, this is devastating. I would cry if I didn't know, if I wasn't emotionally prepared as I am, I would cry. It was beautifully done. So, and then immediately after that, Ron, he holds them off so that those uninfected people can finally join the train car with the other uninfected people.
Mhm.
And immediately after that is where we get the two older sisters. And so I wanted to ask you how you felt about that.
The other surviving group of people, which includes that CEO dude that everybody hates, are kind of at the far end of the train. And they know because the cheerleader girl is with them and she's been telling them that her friend, the baseball player dude, and those survivors, which includes the pregnant lady, the little girl, her father, the pregnant lady's husband, and one of the older sisters, are on their way, that they've survived and they're making their way. And this CEO dude is just kind of feeding into the fear, which obviously there's going to be fear, but he's just really feeding into the fear of like, well, what if they're infected? What if they're, how do we know? Which, okay, fine. You
It's a
haven't laid
valid
eyes on
fear.
these
Yeah,
people. Yeah,
valid.
you
Yeah.
haven't laid eyes on these people, so that's
And
valid.
like his concern is like, how the hell are they making it through all these train cars full
Yeah.
of zombies and they're not infected? So yeah, that's
So
valid. That's
that I
valid.
understand. But when they see the people coming, they see them running, and have you not been paying attention? Have you not seen how quickly these people turn once like,
Mhm.
it's not like a slow process. It's like instantaneously it starts happening. So you can clearly see that these people
You can
are
tell
not
an
infected.
infected person from
They're
an
not
yeah,
infected,
totally.
and they've shut the door, they've locked it, they've tied whatever they can find to keep the door shut. So the baseball player dude is breaking the door down, the glass with his baseball bat. They finally get in,
Mhm.
or they're in the process of getting in, and the older sister that was with the survivors, she's kind of the last coming up. And this is what I'm not sure. She sees her sister with the CEO survivor group.
Mhm.
They see each other,
Yes.
and she just kind of smiles and nods her head sadly. And so I don't know, do you think that she intentionally sacrificed herself because she didn't run? She
Well,
just
so
stayed.
what I saw was that like she didn't necessarily see her sister right away. My understanding watching it was that she was looking at the guy. The guy is like motioning to her like, "Come on, come on, come on." And for whatever reason, she hesitates out of I don't know what, but she's just like, "No, no." And then she sees her sister. And then she's smiling and is like, "Ah," so at that point, when she was saying no, I don't think she'd seen her sister yet. I think she was either just like either paralyzed by fear, fatigued, couldn't go on, didn't want to leave, maybe didn't want to leave the father to be guy who was holding off the door still. So maybe she's just like, we can't leave him. I don't know. But it's at the point that she sees her sister that she does start to move forward toward her sister. And at that point, she's attacked from behind by a zombie, and they immediately shut the door, and then all hell breaks loose because what happens in the next few minutes is just like a complete breakdown of society all in this little train car.
At this point, the only people left from that original group is the main character, his daughter, the pregnant lady, the baseball player, and the cheerleader from that group. And I called him homeless man. Maybe he wasn't homeless, but
The drifter. We'll call him the drifter.
so the little girl's father, the main character, and I was cheering when he slugs that CEO guy,
Yeah,
punches
he
him in the
immediately
face,
goes and punches him. He's like, "What the
punches him in
hell,
the face,
dude?"
and was like, "Why? You could have saved them. They didn't have to die if you'd have just let us in." Which was interesting because I've always thought that if none of this had happened, the natural maybe trajectory of the little girl's father's life would be this would be you,
Mhm.
in
Oh, yeah.
another. 30, 40 years, whatever. This would have been your future. But so he slugs the guy, and the guy immediately starts yelling, "Oh, they're infected. They're infected." And again, I'm like,
And you see
clearly
it,
they're
like,
not.
you see it in the moment where he's, like, pinned down by the dude, by the
Mhm.
father, and you can see him make the calculated decision, "I'm going to make it sound like you're infected." And then these idiots in the car
Mhm.
who buy that, I'm like, "You can see that this man is not infected. Look
Yeah,
with
you can
your
see that none
eyes."
of them are infected. They're not exhibiting any of the immediate effects of someone who's been bitten would have. So they insist that they separate themselves, that they go to the vestibule on the other side of the train car. And so they put them in that area. They lock that door and rope it off so that they can't get in. And camera pans back to the surviving elderly sister who's kind of lamenting, why did her sister do that?
Yeah,
To
it's like
save.
she's in conversation with her sister, like, she's
Mhm.
talking to her and being like, "Why were you always looking out for people? Why were you always"
To help
like,
these idiots,
yeah, she's like
these
she's
assholes.
raging, right, in the moment because she's just watched her sister die, like, get attacked, and she's just like, so stupid, always looking out for other people. What and then she turns back and looks at these assholes who are just going
Mhm.
berserk, yelling at these innocent people to get off their train car. She says, "What a bunch of shit," or "What a load of shit." That's what she
Yeah.
says. And so then she kind of essentially chooses, and I wasn't clear on what she was doing. She starts walking towards the door where the zombies are, and she sees her sister, who I guess, like, at the time, I wasn't clear what was happening. And then later on, kind of beginning to understand the process of how it is that they turn better. I guess, like, in that moment, maybe her sister was turning and wasn't fully turned yet, because it seems like her sister on the zombie side sees her. And there's like a moment of recognition, is what it felt like to me. It's like she recognized her for a moment and had a look of, maybe not joy per se, but just sort of like awe. And then that's when sister on the healthy side says, "Thank you so much for everything." And she opens the door, choosing death by zombie, and essentially unleashing the zombies on these buttholes because she's like,
Yep.
"You deserve it." So what did you think of that?
I know some people that probably would think, "Oh, well, that's still not right," but I'm like, I don't really care. I'm not really bothered that she did that.
Yeah, I
I don't have
mean,
a lot of sympathy for assholes.
I kind of felt the same way. I was like, it's like I said, you are witnessing a full breakdown of society, of decent society, all in this tight little space in the span of like minutes. So it's complete chaos, and
Mhm.
so I don't blame this woman for being like, you brought this on yourselves, and whatever. What a load of crap. Like she says, what a load of crap.
They kind of did our survivors, I'm gonna call them our little group of survivors that we all have come to know and love. Their selfishness kind of helped save them because they're in a separate compartment, so they were not there for this zombie massacre
Right.
that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
The conductor who is just driving the train while all this is happening,
He's just like, "I'm just up here, dudes. I'm looking for the next stop. Here
he's
we
just up
go."
there driving the train. They're coming to, like, one of those, I don't know what they call it, those depots or whatever, where they can, like, switch out trains or, put them on different
Mhm.
tracks, roundabouts, I don't know what they call them. So they're
Roundabouts? I
coming
don't
in,
think
so
that's what
he's
they're
gonna
called.
I don't know what they're called.
I don't know.
But they're coming into one of these, like, junctions, I guess, for lack of a better word, I will call it, and he's gonna stop the train, and he's, like, announcing over the intercom, "I'm gonna look for like, just, I guess, just an engine, like a smaller car. I'm gonna be get it ready to go on the far left track, so anyone who's still alive, make your way over there, and
Mhm.
we'll continue on." Our loving survivors, our little group detrains, and then we find out who is still alive, Valerie.
Who is still alive? I don't know. Who is still alive?
We pan to the bathroom, and who is in the bathroom still alive?
Oh, the COO guy, right? And
Yeah, and
so
one
the
of the
COO guy, like, in the midst of the
and I
train
was like,
car of,
"How did you survive?"
because evil always survives. This is my
Like
point.
a
Like,
cockroach.
throughout the course of throughout the course of the movie, as time passes and this man is still not dead yet, I'm like, well, of course not, because evil people always survive.
I was so, so mad
So mad. And
the
then
first time I saw.
who's surprised at all? So he's in the bathroom stall with one of the last remaining train personnel people. Who's surprised at all that, of course, he sacrifices that dude to the zombies so that he can make his escape? And so immediately, like, detrains on his own and is running for the train car where the conductor has gone. I think, like, this all happens very quickly. Like, in the span of that time, the conductor sees him running from zombies, runs out to help him.
And
And
I'm
then
like,
what does
"No,
the
he's not
COO
worth
do?
it."
Throws him to the zombies. And I'm just like, you're
Mhm.
such a piece of
Oh,
crap
he
human.
also came across because somewhere in here, the baseball player dude and the cheerleader get separated from the main guy, the
Oh,
pregnant
that's
lady,
right. That's
and
right.
so because he also did you see how he keeps running and he doesn't shut any doors to keep the zombies kind
The
of.
COO guy?
Yeah,
No,
he's
because
running and
yeah.
he's just jumping from train to train. He's not closing any doors behind him to kinda keep the zombies separated, so he comes up on the baseball player dude and the cheerleader and grabs the cheerleader and throws her to the
Throws her to
zombies.
and so she gets bit. This was a heartbreaking moment because, again, like,
Oh,
these are two people who have
they're just
made it
kids.
this far.
Yeah, they're just
Baseball
kids.
kid baseball kid, like, made it through multiple train cars of zombies. It's really heartbreaking. This particular scene was so heartbreaking because it's just like he's lost his entire team of baseball friends in the course of this movie. All he had left was her, and then here she is turning in his arms. He's broken down by grief. So
Yeah, well,
he
I think he's
he
just like
gives
you
up.
thinking, "What's the point?"
He gives
Why
up.
not
He
just
gives
give
up,
up
and
right
in
now?
within seconds she attacks him. And I wrote, "Together in the zombie realm forever, R.I.P." So
Yeah, I
zombie
mean.
love forever. In the course of these people all trying to flee the train and flee the zombies that are busting their way out of the train. At some point, there's like a train on fire that comes roaring through and
Mhm,
throws some trains off the tracks and, like, nearly crushes the main character of our story and his little girl, and they're with the pregnant woman, and they're also with the drifter. And so you believe that they're dead, but they're not. They're just trapped kind of like between this car that's resting on another car. And the drifter kind of sacrifices himself to save the woman and the pregnant woman and this little girl. So, like,
and
the
isn't that
entire
a great kind of counterpoint to willingly sacrifices himself so that they can have a chance as opposed to CEO dude who's just throwing everybody to the zombies to
to the
save
zombies,
himself.
yeah. And
So,
again,
two
this is a
different.
this is a man who, similar, has survived this long and made it this far, is the most traumatized from the jump because
Mhm,
he's the one who's seen the most, and he still does that. He still sacrifices himself to save them, and so they get out. The pregnant woman, the daughter, and her father, they go running for the train car that is like slowly moving.
mhm,
And so there's like a really cool scene, Ron, where they manage to catch up, they get on it, and then there's just like this train. When I say train, I'm thinking of like the train of address. It's like the train of address on this train of zombies, like just latching on. I kind of half expected all of these bodies latching on to one another to kind of drag the train to a stop. But what did you think of that? I thought that was pretty cool effects. And
and yeah, those zombies just move damn fast. But now at this point in the story, because we are down to just the main character, his daughter, and pregnant lady. I'm trying to remember the very first time I was watching it, I was thinking, okay, well, surely they wouldn't kill the pregnant lady. They wouldn't kill the little girl. I was thinking maybe this is the three that make it to the end that survive to live. So I was there was a part of me that was thinking, well, I knew that the CEO dude, his death surely had to be coming. Surely had to be coming. So I was thinking that would be kind of the final death and it would be well deserved and glorious. But I was kind of starting to think that maybe this little trio of our survivors was maybe safe at this point.
Mhm.
What did you think?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I did think at some point, I guess I did think that maybe they were going to get out. That was quickly shot to crap because because they round the corner and you see the COO guy, you see the back of his head, and just by the way that was shot, and the fact that we don't see his face right up front, I was just like, ah, crap, he's been turned. And which I didn't think had happened because I guess in the shuffle where he was running to get away from the zombies and like threw the conductor at the zombies essentially to save himself. I guess I didn't realize he'd been bit. Or maybe I don't know what I thought. I guess I thought somehow the bastard had avoided getting bit yet again.
Mhm.
So I didn't think that he'd been bit. So I didn't anticipate that he'd been turned. I fully anticipated that he was going to be alive on the train, and that if anything, there was going to be some sort of tussle with him
Mhm.
and the young father. And sure
Mhm.
enough, he was in the process of turning. And so I thought it was a really interesting way to kind of show the turning process, which up to this point, I don't think we'd really seen in great detail because everything had just always been happening so fast. So we
Mhm.
can see his level of confusion, his disorientation. The COO guy, he's disoriented. He's asking for his mother. He's asking to be taken home.
I don't
Kind
care.
of, totally, but kind of, and we'll get to it with the father in a minute, but kind of the way some people behave as they're dying. There's that disorientation and asking for things from like their past, reliving old memories and things of that nature. So very much like dying is, or how we picture dying, how we as humans imagine dying. And I thought what grace that the young father shows him to be like, sir, you're infected. And because what I would do, my impulse, throw him off the train, like
That's
immediately.
what I would
You
have done. That's what he
you
should
can
have done.
see that he's infected, throw him off the train, but he doesn't. He's trying to talk to the man and be like, you're infected. And the COO is like devastated to realize that. And then in that second, he turns into like fully turns, and now he's rage zombie going
Mhm.
after the old man. And it's like, the young man. And I'm like, damn it, you had a window. Why didn't you throw him off
I
the train?
know. I don't know if the director's intent with kind of having him show those kind of moments of confusion and asking for his mother, I don't know if it was the director's intent for the audience to feel sympathy for him, but I did not feel 1 ounce of sympathy. If anything, I was disappointed that his death wasn't more harrowing and gruesome. I
You're
wanted
like,
him
I'm
to
sad
be
that we didn't see it. I
I
wanted to
wanted to
see
see
it.
zombies chomping on his flesh and him screaming as he's being eaten alive. That's what I wanted to see, and I did not get it.
No, I didn't feel sympathy for him either. And like I said, my impulse during all of that was like, throw him off the train. This is your opportunity. Throw him off the train. Do it
Mhm.
right now. Do it. And he didn't do it. So he's a better man. He's a better human than I am. But so immediately we get into once he's off the train, he has effectively thrown the man from the train. We see that the father's been bit. And so
Yeah.
then,
I'm like, "Why did you put your hand there?"
I know. There were so many times during that fight scene where I'm just like, dude, if he wanted to bite you right now, he could. You are totally, you are just leaving your wrist right there, right below his mouth. So yeah, no surprise that he gets bit. He immediately goes and puts his daughter and the pregnant woman in the conductor's, we'll say cockpit. That's not what they call it on trains, but whatever, cockpit. Because he understands what's about to happen and he understands he has like seconds here. And so
Mhm.
she's crying. She's devastated. She won't let go of him. He rips her arm away, closes them in there, and then like goes to the back of the train and he's just sobbing and hysterical. And this was the moment where I very nearly cried. It was totally getting to me as it should, as it would. It's a heartbreaking scene. But then I was so blown away by what a beautiful scene. So I took lots of notes because I just like, this is so, granted, like I said, I've not seen every zombie movie out there, but I feel like I've never seen this in a zombie movie
You don't
before.
get you don't get I don't wanna call it a beautiful death, but beautiful moments around a death in zombie movies. They tend to be pretty gory, pretty violent. So, yeah,
Yeah.
this was a very different way to shoot it, and
It
I thought
was
it was
so like what I
beautiful also.
wrote, like this concept of taking, and this is what I was kind of getting out talking about the COO. This concept of taking, what I think a lot of us probably think of when we think of dying or of passing on. That it's this idea that when you cross over, the joy of your life or the happiest, best moments of your life are the last. We like to believe, at least I like to believe, that maybe these are the last things that you're thinking about. Maybe these are
Mhm.
the last things that you get to carry with you as you cross over. So the idea of taking that, this aspiration that I think we all like to have to make the gravity of death easier to deal with, the idea of taking that and applying it to zombies, I thought was so brilliant. And the look of awe on his face as he's turning and remembering what it was like to hold his daughter for the first time and carrying that memory with him as he's turning. And just like the look of joy and awe on his face, it blew me away. And then I
Mhm.
love the shot, like what we see at his end, quote
Mhm.
unquote, what we see isn't him, it's the shadow of him falling from the train. I thought that was just it took my breath away. It was beautiful. I couldn't
I can't
cry
believe you didn't
because
cry during all of this, Valerie.
I couldn't cry because I
The
was
little
just
girl screaming didn't rip your heart. I have to go on Facebook right now and unfriend you. Where's my phone?
No,
I cannot
because I
believe you
was
didn't
just
cry.
so like as a storyteller, I was just like, this is brilliant. Like as a fan, I was just like, this is amazing. This is amazing.
Yes.
If I was just seeing it in theaters, I would be sobbing completely. That's the scene that would have broken me. I had made it through
Maybe I should have
everything.
never told you that I cried so hard. Maybe if I'd
Maybe
have just
not. Well,
left
but I don't know. Like, I tell you though, like coming off of the Tigers movie and The Devil Takes You, like I'm just broken. I'm broken. Like I'm emotionally hollowed out. I can't cry anymore. Yeah. So then we get to the end where the pregnant woman and his daughter are walking toward the last safe haven. And honestly, Ron, as they're walking through this tunnel towards the last safe haven where the snipers are waiting on the other end and they're pointing snipers at them, and the military men are unable to determine whether or not these people are infected. This
Mhm.
was the moment where I was like, oh man, this is gonna be like Romero's Night of the Living Dead. They're gonna get shot. That's what a tragic.
Well, let me tell you. I could not find it, but when I first watched this movie, I came across an article where at one point the director was thinking that was the way he was going to end the movie, with the military shooting them.
Mhm.
And thank God he did
Well,
not
like,
go that way,
well,
because that just would have been just
that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, of
like,
course,
what was the point?
because the world is shite and nobody gets out alive. Like,
Now they
so
may still die down the road, but I don't have to see it. So in my mind, they're still surviving. And
yeah, so
but
but like thankfully they do recognize that because she starts
because
singing.
she's singing
That's what
the song
starts
that
happening, is that the little girl finally starts singing the song that she had meant to sing for her father at her school recital, and she's singing it loudly. And I mean, what a beautiful actress. She did such a
and
great job.
zombies don't sing.
Zombies don't sing. They can't sing for crap. But she's singing and belting it out and she's crying. I mean, this little actress did a phenomenal
Oh,
job.
she was awesome. She just like
So
ripped my heart out, stomped on it again.
I mean, that took me out. That was amazing. That was just freaking brilliant. And that I think is what separates this zombie movie from any other zombie movie that I've have filmed that I've seen. I think it sets it apart and elevates it. I don't know. I don't have top fave zombie movies, but where does this rank for you? I think you said this was like best one you've seen. Or like, what are your top 3? This is what I ask people on social media. What are your top 3?
I mean, I liked World War Z. It wasn't like a box office success by American Hollywood standards, I don't think, but I liked it. I enjoyed it just because it was that was the first time I'd ever seen like zombies that could run hella fast.
Yeah.
That was kind of a new thing and a terrifying thing to me, because that was like, okay, this kind of zombie apocalypse, no way do I survive
I
more
stand
than
no
5
chance.
minutes. Yeah, no more 5 minutes at the most, and then I'm gone. I'm out. I mean, I like Shaun of the Dead just because that's more comedy.
Alex and I have discussed our zombie apocalypse scenarios,
Mhm.
and I'm sure that you and Robert, like, in the event that you get bit, or in the event that I get bit, are you prepared to do what you need to do and put me down
Oh
and
yeah,
kill?
man.
Okay, me
I mean, I
too.
don't own a
Me
gun.
too.
I've never shot a gun, but double tap to the forehead.
Me too. And see, and maybe this is why, like there is just something about me in watching a zombie movie, and maybe this is why I didn't cry. I emotionally shut off because I'm just like, if you get bit, Ron, I will miss you. Thank you for your service. And it is
'Cause
time to carry on.
wasn't there that scene in Train to Busan where they enter the car that all the baseball team had been in, and so the surviving baseball
That's right.
player
That's right.
freezes
He
because
freezes
he's
because he's
seeing
heartbroken to
they're his
see.
friends, and
Yeah,
he doesn't ever like
he
hit
doesn't
any of
act.
them, even though the main character dude and the pregnant lady's husbands are like fighting for their lives in there. He's just
Yeah.
frozen because these are his friends, and I'm like, dude, these are not your friends anymore.
Step out of it.
The moment has passed.
Cry later. Swing away.
Swing away. But yeah, so yeah, that was gonna be my question for you too. Is like, if your husband
No, yeah. I
burned.
mean, like, listen. Here's the situation. I've thought long and hard about this. I can put all of you away. I have no problem. If it's my children, that is where I'm in trouble. If my
Mm.
children get bit, I'm in trouble. I can't do it. I know I can't do it. But like, if it's you, I'm sorry. I love you. Bye. Like, I will cry
Yeah.
for you later.
Yeah, because I mean, you have to. There was a scene in. Did you ever see World War Z?
I have not seen World War Z, no.
Oh, man, you need to watch that one too.
I almost did. I almost did just to have a comparison for this because of so many of the resources that we've linked for you guys do
Mhm.
mention World War Z. So I almost did, and then I just ran out of
'Cause there's
time.
a scene in there where the Brad Pitt character is talking with this scientist, and the scientist mentions how he had to watch what was left of his wife kill their son.
Oh my
And I was like,
gosh.
"Dude, you didn't take her out."
Yeah, it
So,
didn't
yeah,
have to
I
be
mean,
that
it's like
way.
you
Your
have
son could
to.
still be here, dude. Yeah, I thought it was great. It was just freaking great. I hold it above all the others so far that I've seen in
And
the zombie world.
interestingly enough, this was the director's first foray into live action films because prior to this, he had done like animated movies. In
Yeah.
fact, Train to Busan. And I read articles that I'm not sure what the sequence was. I read some articles that said the animated Soul Station, which is kind of a prequel to this movie in
Mhm.
terms of timelines, that he did that first. And then he was encouraged to do this. And then I've read others that make it sound like he did this first and then Soul Station came next. But either way, yeah, he was pretty much doing animation prior to this. So I was like, wow, dude, way to hit it out of the park on your first live action.
Yeah, we've linked a ton of resources for you guys that Veronica sourced. Veronica sourced all of these because she was like, "You're not allowed to look up stuff before you see this movie because I don't want you to get spoilers." I was like, "Okay, fine." But the director did say in one of the interviews that we have for you guys that his style of filmmaking, he likes to keep things simple and he likes to avoid too many cuts. And so he said we wanted a high-speed movie with a lot of dynamism,
Dynamism?
whatever. But he didn't want to overcomplicate it. So he said action movies can be pretty cumbersome. They have too much going on. We wanted a very basic structure. I liked it. I think that the action sequences, which were mostly fueled by that father to be, he's an action star, obviously. And then I looked at his filmography. Has done a lot of action films, so not surprising. But yeah, he's the driving force of that. And I think like I said, it brings a levity to
Mhm.
this film that is necessary because otherwise it would just be too bleak and horrifying.
And it was
But yeah,
just stressful pretty much from the time they start getting on the infected girl gets on the train and things start pretty going south really quickly after that, and then it's pretty much just go 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 go. It's like tension doesn't ever really let up very much.
I thought this was funny. So in another interview, the director said that Korean audiences expect local films to be based in realism, even if they're zombie films. And I thought this was funny. He said, if an American actor playing a superhero appears in spandex, that's fine. But if a Korean actor does it, it looks weird. And so that just kind of made me laugh because it was just like, well, yeah, we do like our lycra and spandex. That checks out. He's like, you have to come up with different ideas. And the important thing is, how can we make it Korean, not just with design, but story? There are plenty of ways to take social circumstances and access them in a script. To the point that you said earlier at the beginning, totally, in a post-pandemic world, this film felt very familiar because we've been through this stuff with COVID. So like the quarantining, the fear-based behavior around infected people, and so like it felt very familiar coming out of everything that we've all experienced, and it felt very current. It felt very now. In another article that we've got linked for you guys, they talk about the claustrophobic high-speed train setting as being a useful tool for spotlighting the danger that's unfolding that nobody can get away from. They say that in a COVID world where humanity has recently experienced the terror of a relentless illness, the proliferation of the virus from that one initial woman throughout the train hits even harder than it did 8 years ago.
There's been announced that, of course, Hollywood has to remake this movie. So
I saw that, yeah.
has a working title of Last Train to New York and has a director attached to it who I'm not familiar with. Timo Jahanto? I don't know. Probably mispronouncing that also. See, the one thing, and you kind of touched on this earlier, that sets Train to Busan apart from your usual zombie horror movie is that it had heart.
Which Ron, like,
It wasn't just an action film. It wasn't just a horror film. It had heart.
see, and like that's so interesting. This isn't an article that we have listed for you guys because we're not gonna list it for you because it's crap. But it was a review that didn't care for the film, and the guy said the exact opposite. He was like, it lacks heart, and I'm like, are you
What movie was he
inebriated?
watching?
Like, what do you mean? Like, sit down, sir. You fundamentally unserious man.
Oh, hello.
This movie is all heart, in my opinion.
Well, you know what I say to that? Did you see that scene from Ratatouille?
Ratatouille. I've never seen Ratatouille all the way through.
You've never seen
It's
Ratatouille?
freaking long. It goes on forever.
It's cute. Well, anyway, there's a great scene where 'cause there's a food critic in it and just makes a wonderful comment. And he eventually comes around and he makes this wonderful comment about how, and I don't know the exact quote because it's been so long, but he basically says that a critic's opinion of someone who has put themselves out there to make something, to create something,
Mhm.
is basically just not worth anything because the critic hasn't done anything, hasn't
Yeah.
created anything. So poo on that man. And did you have somebody there was something you wanted to say
Oh,
also
that's right.
about additional, was it movies like this or that
Well,
people who
so
like
we
this
had
might
asked,
also like?
guys. We had asked on social media, what are your top zombie movies if you have them? And so we did get some feedback from someone who commented on our TikTok. We are on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. You can find us. I think we're at Scream Sister on all of those. On TikTok, we might be at Scream Sister Pod. I don't know for sure, but if you search us, you'll find us. Anyway, his top three were Train to Busan, The Sadness, which is a 20, let me look it up. The Sadness is a 2021 Taiwanese body horror film, which sounds really amazing, written and directed by a Canadian filmmaker.
Body horror kind of freaks me out, honestly.
But if it's zombie based,
Is it
that's
zombie
interesting.
movies though?
It's kind of body horror, isn't it? But specifically, the question was, what are your top three zombie films? And so he
Okay.
said The Sadness, Train to Busan was number one. The Sadness was number two. And then the third one was it's called Kingdom, and it's a South Korean period horror television series available on Netflix, I believe. And it sounds like it's a period piece where a king, I don't know what it's about. I haven't watched it, but my idea of it is that it's this king that has come back from death in some way, and with him has come like essentially a plague that is infecting people. I could be totally wrong on that. So I invite you all to check this series out, but it sounds really cool. It's based on a webtoon series called The Kingdom of the Gods. One more quote. So again, coming from a resource we've got linked for you guys in show notes. Brian Tellerico for RogerEbert.com wrote, "The film is thematically stronger than your average zombie flick in the way it captures how panic can make monsters of us all, and it's our responsibility to overcome that base instinct in times of crisis." I came across a list this week from Yardbook. I think it's yardbook.com, but it's like the 25 most entertaining horror movies, which anytime I come across titles like that, it always is like, well, first, yardbarker.com, that's what it is. But anytime I come across titles like that, it's always like, well, what is the criteria for this? That's a pretty vague title. And so I just wanted to take you through a couple of them, see what you thought. Number one of them is Rear Window, 1954.
That's a horror movie? Rear
Yeah,
Window?
like I think it's more thriller to
The
me,
one with
murder
Jimmy Stewart
mystery.
and
Yeah,
Grace Kelly?
yeah. I don't
I
think
love that movie, but
it's
I
a great
wouldn't consider
movie.
it, I consider it suspense maybe.
Yeah, like murder mystery thriller kind of thing. I don't know if it's, I
I
don't
do
know,
love that
but
movie.
it is a great movie. The second one was Get Out, which you still haven't seen, have you?
No, Robert saw it. Robert really liked it.
It's great. Get Out is great. The next one is Shaun of the Dead, which we talked of.
That's a fun one.
The Thing, which came out in 1982.
I don't know where they are. Somewhere really cold, some station. I don't know if it's Antarctica or wherever. Just some kind of isolated station. A bunch of men that are working
Like
for some
scientists.
reason that I can't remember. And I don't know how the thing gets in there. The dog dies because the dog. Oh, I think
You're like, I
somehow
remember the dog
brings
dies.
it in. The dog brings it in, and obviously does not survive that process. And
one of the other ones on here, Jaws, 1975. The Lost Boys. Veronica, were you a Lost Boys fan?
I did
1987.
like the Lost Boys. Kiefer Sutherland and was it Jason Patrick was the other one? And
There
the Coreys.
are diehard Lost Boys fans out there.
The
I've never
Coreys.
seen it. I've never
You
seen
never
it.
seen the Lost Boys? It's fun. You should watch it.
I've never.
Vampires.
I should watch it. We should have a watch where we discuss that one. Alien and Aliens, the sequel. Alien came out in 1979. Aliens in 1986. The Birds. I guess it was horror back in the day. It was horror in the 60s. It was horror in 1963. Yeah, there's a bunch of really good ones. Halloween is on here, obviously, but there's a bunch of really Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Signs 2002, Godzilla 1956. You know what's really interesting on this list? Silence of the Lambs is also on this one. They end it with the last film they have on this list is The Princess Bride, which came out in
What?
1987.
What?
They say They say, is this a horror movie? There's
No.
fencing, fighting, monsters, a kidnapped princess, a torture chamber, a creepy forest, and a blood-soaked duel. If it is, it's one of the best ones ever made. And so just a reminder, we are reading The Daughter of Doctor Moreau by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. And our goal is to read through that. We want you to read through it with us so that you can email us or message us your thoughts on the book. We want to be able to share that on the podcast. We will be discussing The Daughter of Dr. Moreau in May. So it's a long time to get the book read. So we invite you guys to read that book with us so that you can be part of our discussion with us. We had somebody on TikTok ask us if we were going to start a Discord group.
Oh, really?
Which I'm not opposed to. I'm
not familiar with Discord. So
I've never been on Discord, so I'd have to learn how to.
I don't know how that works. I have to learn it.
I'm old and set in my ways, people. I'm not that old, but I am pretty set in my ways. So Veronica and I are going to be, Scream Sister will be at the Texas Haunters Convention this summer, July 13th and 14th. It's going to be in Mesquite, Texas. And for those of you who are not familiar, the Texas Haunters Convention is just sort of it's a 2-day lovers of Halloween unite in Texas kind of festival. It's a chance to come out and see exhibitors who, these are people who either they participate in professional haunts or they run semi-professional haunts out of their own homes. Like, these are just people who are doing Halloween at peak levels. And so I'm so excited to go and see what they're doing. There are people, I believe some of the exhibitors even teach like workshops during this 2-day conference on like how to do stuff. So, if you're interested in coming and absorbing that, you can come in costume. Your kids can come in costume. So come and see us. Ronnie and I will be there. We'll have stuff for sale. We'll be talking to people about what they love about Halloween, favorite scary movies, all of that stuff. So we're excited. You can use our code SISTER24. Use that code at checkout for a discount on cost of admission. I think the only other thing that I wanted to make sure to do, guys, we love to get reviews. We really hope that you will give us a rating or a review. It does genuinely help people find the podcast. The reason why so many of the podcasts that you listen to urge you to do that is because it genuinely does help people find us. It helps us grow our little community of weirdos here, which is what we want to do. And we do have a fun review that I wanted to share with you guys. So this person wrote, "A great show so far with always interesting episode subjects. Excellent chemistry that translates really well into the pod. Looking forward to more. This is from Clarissa, who, by the way, is part of the 30, Dirty, and Dying podcast, which is hilarious. It's a play on the expression 30, flirty, and thriving. So this is 30, Dirty, and Dying. They've been really great and supportive of us in our first year of podcasting. So we are always happy to hear from them and have their support. So thank you, Clarissa.
If you haven't already. Oh, the other thing that I came across in reading about Train to Busan is that apparently, like during the Korean War, Busan was never, it was like one of the only major cities that never fell under North Korea's control, no matter how often the what do they call it, the front lines kind of changed. Busan always remained under South Korean control and was so kind of a haven, if you will, during that point. So I don't know if maybe that's for
so I was is that where they get to Busan, and that is the last safe haven is Busan?
That's what I was assuming, that it was.
That's cool.
They made it as far as they could, and maybe the military will take them on from there. But
that's cool.
I just thought that was a little interesting bit that I came across in reading. So
I do know that the main character of the film, the guy who plays the father of the young girl, he was born in Busan, so he's from that area. So I thought that was kind of neat. Hold on, guys, I'm looking at the calendar. April 15th, that's our next episode. We will be watching 2017's The Ritual, which is available on Netflix. The Ritual weaves a tale of friendship and fear. 4 friends set out on a hiking trip in the dense forests of Sweden, only to become lost in a sinister wilderness inhabited by an ancient evil. I'm aware of this movie. I have heard good things about this film. I have never seen it. I don't believe Ronnie's ever seen it either, so we are excited to take it on. You've got wilderness folkloric horror, which is one of my favorite kinds of horror. So I'm excited to take this one on. I'm all about the scary, creepy woods. So even though I'm the first one to be like, don't go into the scary, creepy woods. All right. Well, we will see you all next time. Thank you so much.
Bye. Scream Sister is a Nest production hosted by me, Veronica, and Valerie, editing by Valerie, music by Omar Chakor, production support by Lorenzo Villarreal and Alex Street. Listen to new episodes of Scream Sister every other Monday, and don't forget to give us a rate and review. It's the best way to help us grow.